regardless, I'm heartless. Even if I gotta take it, I'll take it. See if it's money out there, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna make it.
Cause I cry, cause I hustle, cause I cry, cause I hustle.
YouTube, welcome to Backstabber TV, where we have enough drama for your mama. Today's story is about a simp by the name of Michael Wayne Thomas, aka 1-8. Now one would ask, what kind of name is 1-8 for a pimp? Names like Silky, Slim, or Don Juan usually describe the player's personal attributes. It also said something about a nigga's mindset about the game. The name 1-8 derived from the tag 187, referring to the California Penal Code for murder. Prostitution is the legal term used to identify a woman who sells her body. However, all prostitutes are not hoes, and all niggas with prostitutes are not pimps. So the qualities to become successful at this game do not exist. Some are lucky. Bellboys, brothels, madams, cab drivers, agents, producers, rappers, security guards, and even cops have been accused of promoting prostitution. Prostitutes will pay a light pole, but hoes pay pimps. This new slew of buku niggas promoting prostitution usually wind up in awkward predicaments like 1-8. To get a better understanding of what motivated 1-8 to get involved with prostitution, we have to go back to Oklahoma City in the 80s. After relocating to Oklahoma City from Illinois in the late 70s with his father, mother, both hard-working, and 2 siblings, an older sister and a younger brother, the family moved to a neighborhood on the west side of Oklahoma called North Highlands. Black families were just beginning to move into the Highlands, and so slowly but surely, the whites started moving out. 1-8 took to doing burglaries with another cat from the neighborhood named Ronald, who became his partner in crime, using his pop's Chevy. They would break into houses, stealing everything from electronics to firearms and cash. 1-8 was also big on retail thefts. He could walk out a Radio Shack with amplifiers and receivers, put them in the car, and go back for the rest of the wiring. If it wasn't nailed down, he would take it, point blank. In the house across the street, there was a pimp named Oklahoma Red. He drove a burnt armored, fully customized 1969 Thunderbird with kissing doors. The interior was reupholstered in butter-soft white leather with customized rims and sunroof. There was a speedboat and a few chopper-style motorcycles in the driveway. Red had recently begun purchasing dump trucks and farm equipment, which he kept parked on the street of the block around the corner from his house. His equipment took up the entire cross street. On a couple of occasions, items would come up missing, and one night somebody broke out a window in one of the trucks and rifled inside looking for something to steal. Ronald and 1-8 began peeping out the scene. They knew Red had 3 dogs, a poodle that barked all the time and 2 Doberman pinchers, one black and the other one brown. One morning, after noticing Red's car gone, they decided this would be a good chance to have a look at the layout. However, little did they know, one of Red's broads had made a run, and he was sitting at his kitchen table reading the newspaper in front of a picturesque window. Suddenly, both Dobermans rounded the corner and stopped at the fence, alerting to something. That's when he saw something fly over the fence that sent the dog scurrying. He stood up just as another piece of raw hamburger meat hit the ground. Before Ronald knew what happened, he was staring down the barrel of a gun and began pleading for his life. Red told him that he had caught him and his little buddy peeping at his shit, and he promised to kill both of them if he caught him in his house. The next time he saw 1-8, he personally issued the same threat. Over the next few months, they had started running errands for Red to hustle up a few bucks. People were fascinated how the pimp would drive through the neighborhood in a dump truck with 4 bleach-haired blonde holes in the back. For the most part, 1-8's little head superseded his big head, so without a pimp bone in his body, he just wanted to fuck something. So it's still a mystery how 17 years later he found himself promoting prostitution. After a few minor scrapes with the law and Ronald getting a lengthy prison sentence, he acquired a few low-paying jobs in the food service business, until finally he landed a city job with the sewer and water company. For years, it was common to see him in a hole in the side of the road in full work gear, including hard hat. When it came to females, as long as he could fuck, he was game. The closest he ever got to a slick bitch is when he used to drive a chick named Tink to see a pimp by the name of Keith Prince, who was incarcerated at the Joseph Harp Correctional Facility at the time, in the early 80s. He never really acquired the skills, knowledge, or know-how about the game, picking up lugs dropped by sorry-ass, out-of-pocket renegade wantstitutes, which is a bitch that wants to prostitute. The chicks he encountered knew more about the streets than he did, and could only educate him from a bitch's point of view. For 1-8, lack of knowledge, game, or finesse equals underage prostitutes, where traditional pimping is not required. A child's mind cannot conceive the psychological ramifications concerning the type of manipulation. That's why these type of niggas and bitches target teens.
The main areas of concern are children who are in foster care, a group home, or may have run away.
Children are more vulnerable.
The FBI says Oklahoma is so vulnerable to sex trafficking because of this. So many interstates and crossroads of interstates, so people are trafficking children through our state.
Around 1998, 1-8 popped up in New York with an out-of-pocket ass white bitch and 2 juveniles, 1 black and 1 white. It was evident that this so-called bottom bitch had a lot of say-so and felt like being in pocket like the other hoes didn't apply to her. In the game, pimping is boss. Everything else is secondary. Facts. Hoes move around when pimps get to working at them. Instructions dictate that hoes get in pocket around pimps. The lack of understanding about the hierarchy of pimps over hoes caused 1-8 to instruct his hoes to do the unthinkable. Instead of instructing them hoes to stay out of pimp's way, he said, if any of them niggas get at you while you working, cut them. And then he proceeded to give them hoes razors. And sure enough, shortly after, his disrespectful, loose-of-a-goose ass white bitch cut a well-known veteran pimp with a straight razor for doing his job. The scene was ludicrous, and for this violation, he was given 24 hours to leave New York, at which time he did. Once he made it back to the flatlands, he went to what he knew best, the manipulation and coercion of children for for the purpose of
A
prostitution.
nationwide effort to crack down on underage prostitution led to the arrest of 19 Oklahomans.
The FBI spearheaded the initiative with Oklahoma City police helping make the arrests over the weekend.
FBI held a news conference in Oklahoma City and announced they recovered 82 minors and arrested 239 sex traffickers here in Oklahoma.
Now just picture moving around a racist ass state like Oklahoma. A black man, 30 plus, with 5 white girls. Nobody over the age of 16. Traveling daily in a big Cadillac. And these kids got on skimpy ass short sets. Like look at me. And this fool thinking that he representing some pimping. Meanwhile, he definitely was attracting some unwanted attention.
How did that happen?
He actually lived in an upscale apartment complex, which concerned a lot of the nosy white neighbors. You know what I'm saying? And they probably would document his every move. You know?
As soon as I get the apartment number from her, we'll air it out.
So then eventually he took his show on the road. And you know, of course, that got the feds involved.
I believe it's this one, which is hard to see her face from here. But on the ad, she looks about 14.
It's called Operation Cross Country, a joint effort headed up by the FBI and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They announced Wednesday 84 minors were recovered and 120 traffickers were arrested across the country.
So eventually, 1-8 was indicted under case number 040082 in the Western District Federal Court in Oklahoma. Michael Wayne Thomas is charged in federal court with allegedly controlling several prostitutes between the ages of 14 and 18. He would reportedly make them prostitute in Harrisburg, PA, Denver, Dallas, and cities in New York and Ohio. In return, his girls were beaten, scared, and high as Thompson would use violence, threats of violence, the exhibition of weapons, the distribution of drugs to intimidate prostitutes and control them according to court papers. Other girls were shipped out of state for prostitution according to the court documents, which identify more than 24 girls as part of the underage prostitution trade in the Oklahoma City area. Several defendants have federal court hearings today and Thursday. Several state defendants have court dates in June. Thomas pled guilty to 2 counts against him. The district court sentenced the defendant to 210 months in prison, which included an enhancement for being an organizer or leader within the meaning of the federal sentencing guidelines. The defendant engaged in the commercial sexual exploitation of women and girls. At his sentencing, a federal agent testified that Thomas had prostituted approximately 4 juvenile and 2 adult females under the current indictment. Thomas has acted as a pimp for approximately 25 to 30 females over the course of his career. The agent also testified that Thomas had transported juveniles to Dallas, Denver to perform commercial sex acts and had promoted prostitution in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and possibly New York. The agent also testified that prostitutes in Oklahoma identified him as the dominant pimp in the area. The district court also found that Thomas recruited girls from Kansas. Under the current indictment, the victims in the plaintiff's first instant, victims, 4 anonymous children. Second victim column, 2 anonymous females. So even though Thompson pled guilty to those 2 counts of transporting minors across the state line to engage in criminal sexual activities, he was actually originally indicted on May 5th, 2004 on 15 criminal counts of arising from interstate prostitution concerning minors. And so the fact that he was able to plead to just 2 of the counts indicate that there was some type of deal made, and we're going to get to that shortly. FBI Special Agent Michael Beaver was intent on putting Thomas away. He testified in court extensively about 1/8's activities. Okay, so apparently as a result of 1/8's arrest, approximately 15 other individuals were indicted and arrested across the state of Oklahoma. According to several individuals involved in the case, they state that Thompson just basically gave up information as an agreement for them to drop the majority of the charges, and he would plead to two counts of the indictment out of the 15. Under commentary and significant features, it states 13 other claims were dismissed by motion of the government as part of the plea bargain. They included 8 additional counts of aiding and abetting the transportation of minors with an intent to engage in criminal sexual activity, being a felon in the possession of a firearm, monetary transaction with proceeds derived from criminal activity, and coercion of minors to engage in sexual activity. So shit, when do you know what I'm saying, it to be common for the feds to dismiss felon in possession of firearms charges? You know what I'm saying? That shit carry from a nickel to a dime by itself. So real quick, charges and claims summary. Defendant, Michael Wayne Thomas. Legislation statute code in which he was convicted under was 18 USC 2423A. Charge details: transporting minors across the state lines with intent to engage in criminal sexual activity. Verdict: guilty. Charge details: interstate traveling, aiding unlawful activity. Verdict: guilty. Term of imprisonment: 17 years, 6 months, and 4 years of supervised release. Fine. Payment to the state in U.S. currency, up to $10,000 special assessment. Appellate division, upheld. So apparently at some point Thomas felt like he had cooperated and actually received more time than he was expected. So he did actually appeal the sentence. Bottom line is that the appellate division ruled with the court, and his conviction and sentence was affirmed, meaning it was upheld. So the basis of his appeal was centered around his sentencing. Initially, he was charged with 15 counts, including 922G, which is a federal firearms charge that carries 10 years alone. Along with the other 14 charges, he could have received like 80 or 100 years. And the feds, they rarely give freebies. However, 13 charges were dropped by way of a plea agreement in exchange that he supply information about other pimps. Eventually, over 26 others were charged, some on state level, some federally. According to a reliable source with first-hand knowledge about 1/8's loose lips, he told on everybody and their mama. And this caused him to be housed in a protective custody unit at the federal facility in El Reno, Oklahoma for most of his stay. Now, only facing 2 counts out of the 15, Thomas thought he would get a slap on the wrist. However, U.S. District Judge David L. Russell had heard enough. If he could have executed Thomas for having sex with them young girls, white kids at that, probably remind him of his grandkids, he would have sent him to the firing squad. Secretly, his own lawyer probably wanted him executed. There was never any adversarial animosity between the government and the defense due to 1/8's cooperation. Working together. According to an insert from the calendar schedule, the attorney James T. Rowan apparently only received a sum of $4,131 for the entire case as a CJA, a court-appointed attorney, which is shitty pay for a case like that. So, apparently you get what you pay for. Nothing. According to the calendar schedule, a motion for a protective order was made by the government on June the 1st, 2004. And the order was granted June 22nd, 2004. There are protective orders for victims and there are protective orders for witnesses or cooperators. The case was prosecuted by Assistant U.S. Attorney Sanford C. Coase, who is an Obama appointee. He is the individual who motioned for the protection order which mandates that Michael Thomas is housed in protective custody and that his files pertaining to being informant are sealed. This entire schedule basically chronologically lists dates from the arrest, indictment, to the plea and the sentence, and also the appeal. So why did Thomas get 210 months even though he cooperated? Here's why. The following memorandum discusses becoming a witness is not a get out of jail free card. Many people cooperate with the federal government as cooperating witnesses and get a reduced prison sentence, but they still have to serve time in prison. Becoming a cooperating witness does not guarantee that there will be no prison time. The outcomes depend on the specific circumstances of a case, the witness's individual circumstances, and the sentencing judge's perspective. Key word: how does cooperating work? Defendants, targets, and suspects in a criminal matter often offer up information about others involved in criminal conduct as a way to reduce their sentence exposure. In most judicial districts, a person will have to plead guilty first before becoming a cooperating witness. In fact, it would be odd for the government to agree to work with a person or someone as a cooperating witness when they are still fighting their own case against the prosecutors or disputing the prosecutor's facts. Bottom line is the person trying to benefit from cooperation will most likely have to agree to plead guilty first. How much sentence reduction can a cooperating witness get? The sentencing judge has broad discretion to provide a cooperating witness with a sentence reduction or a downward departure, meaning they don't have to. There are confidential informants and cooperating witnesses. A significant difference is that the identity of a cooperating witness is likely to become known once the prosecutors file charges. It's something the prosecutors warn about from the onset. On the other hand, law enforcement seeks to protect the identity and the assistance of their confidential informants, though they cannot always guarantee that 100%. A confidential informant, or CI, assists law enforcement in building evidence against other people suspected of crimes. CIs do this in exchange for leniency when they have pending charges or for money. What is the value of a cooperating witness? Cooperating witnesses can help law enforcement create timelines of events, identify key participants, and locate critical evidence, among other things. Indeed, criminal prosecutors understand the importance of cooperating witnesses to the criminal justice system. Cooperating witnesses and CIs are crucial to the administration of justice, and many criminal cases have the unique position to explain how things operated. Title 9. 9-21-00, witness security. The utilization of persons in the custody of BOP or USMS for investigative purposes or as targets of investigative activity. And that's 9-21-050. Informants. 9-21.110. The safety/security of an informant assisting in an investigation is the responsibility of the investigative agency utilizing the informant. An informant is only eligible for participation in the security program if he or she is also a bona fide witness as defined in USC 3521 ET SEQ. Requests to use for investigative purposes persons who are in physical or legal custody of the BOP or USMS, who are under BOP supervision or a target of such individuals in covert investigation, must be submitted to the OEO for review and prior approval. So that's saying that even to qualify for some type of protected custody or sealing of your files, it has to be met by some prior approval by the big agency or whatever. To the public, the use of criminal informants is everywhere in the U.S. justice system. From street corners to jails to courthouses to prisons, every year the government negotiates thousands to deal with criminal offenders in which suspects can avoid arrest or punishment in exchange for information. These deals typically take place off the record, and the discussions, they dictate that the federal government's investigatory work benefits from using cooperating witnesses in a vast number of criminal cases. Okay, and judging from the calendar, we can see each individual count that was eventually dismissed because of the information that he provided, except for the two, of course, that the judge socked it to him on. So I see here, once he pled guilty on June the 8th and agreed to cooperate, the government began to systematically dismiss 13 other counts.
We sifted through a lot of court documents, finding 5 of them were sex traffickers and 14 are prostitutes. Most of the arrests happened on Saturday when the suspects tried to lure in victims over the weekend.
So for us, the FBI is helping us with investigative resources and also with resources to help you.
Put resources and time and energy and to build partnerships around addressing trafficking and exploitation, particularly of children.
First and foremost, we're most focused on the victims in these cases. It's important that we prosecute and investigate, but making sure that they are receiving the services that they need, that they're getting the help that they need just to better their future.
I think to build trust with victims of exploitation, you have to first and foremost just be honest with them. We are here as a law enforcement agency to investigate a crime, but we understand they may not see themselves as victims.
Obviously, we want to get the information.